Yo, what's going on? It's someone that's no one, and welcome back to part 2 of my first time trying cocaine. Now, in the first part, a lot was laid down, basically of what was happening during that night and the people we were with. So if you haven't seen that, I recommend you do see it so, this all makes sense. So I'll leave a link below for your convenience. But let's not waste any time. If you remember where we left off, Evan and I just got coked up, and Sarah was driving us to get some weed. Now, once in the car, Sarah brought up how she really wasn't down to be there, and basically that Isabel was an idiot for inviting them. This is where Michael and I found out more about the type of people they were, and at the same time is when I really started to feel the cocaine. Now, I'll say that before doing it, I was expecting it to be a lot more intense and just engaging overall, but for the most part, I could handle myself off of it. I did have some moderate stimulation, I was a bit jumpy, and I guess anxious about things. I was more attentive, but I'll say for my first time that I was too riding the high of a new experience, which in itself I think is a high and can cause bias towards understanding the experience of a substance. So partially I remember I was hyped up and felt I had a larger ego. We of course had music going, which sounded good as hell because it was very energetic. The one thing I picked up on though right away was that I had a runny nose, which this is a very common side effect even when you're just snorting things in general. And I also had some numbness in the teeth. But anyways, Sarah and Isabel are kind of arguing, but it's mostly Sarah. She was like, fuck all those blank town, remember I'm not saying the name, fuck all those blank town ass niggas, they're on dirt, I know it, especially that dude Marco, why would you invite him again? And basically just how the situation was messed up. She also brought up that there just was some negative energy between her and them. Like, there was just this level of understanding that they knew she thought they were bad people or whatever. Plus, I think Marco brought up a threat against her boyfriend, which Sarah's boyfriend himself was gang affiliated, and she was going on about how she felt tempted to just have shit go down and call him up. But she kept her cool and basically came to the solution that we should just leave. Evan and Isabel weren't down for that, mainly because they didn't want that money they put in for the hotel to go to waste, and it was supposed to be a celebration for Grace. But after they said that, Sarah said she would only come back if they kicked them out, which I'll say now didn't happen, but I would guess they would have given us trouble about it. But no one was really down to do it, and they tried to convince Sarah not to leave, but she wasn't having it. So while we were coked up, we drive over to the plug's house. Now Sarah knew Evan's plug, and while we were there, we talked for a bit, and she let the plug, fuck it, we'll call him Jay, she lets the plug Jay know what the situation was. Ah, you can stay here, Sarah, you don't gotta go back, Jay said, which Sarah was more than happy doing. They had a bonfire going on at the time with their own group, who I knew were a much chiller vibe. But we chat for a bit, and Jay serves us after like 10 minutes. I remember feeling kinda tense, but at the same time, underwhelmed by the cocaine. I remember Michael and I were the first to get back into the car before Isabel and Evan, who came back a few moments later, which Michael was to drive us back. Michael said to me, hey, how much you want to bet that bottle's going to be empty when we get back? And I'm just like, shit, you're probably right, bro. But Evan and Isabel get back in the car. Now I'm pretty sure I brought a drink and a cup with something there to mix, and I handed it to Isabel to share because she wanted something. I ended up forgetting about this cup and really didn't think too much of it when I gave it to her. I'm pretty sure she finished the rest off because she was getting more and more fucked up, especially considering she was off bars, which, if you know, the two will increase each other's effects and will give a much higher chance of blacking out and just overall danger. Isabel was saying something along the lines of, whatever, fuck Sarah, she's being a little pussy. And Evan kind of agreed with her, and I trusted Evan that things were going to be alright. He still carried an energy at this point that things would be, which he said fuck it. Things weren't even going bad when we left, and hadn't been bad really all night yet, at least to his knowledge, which was pretty shit at the time. But from me and Michael's point of view, things were alright, and there was still a good chance of a good night happening. Yeah, there was some low-key grime about the whole situation, but that was stuff we were used to, and we definitely weren't going to let it ruin the whole night. They kinda saw it as the night for Grace too, remember, and Grace herself was still back at the motel. Now, Grace, I felt, had fair judgment this night. She didn't do any cocaine or anything. She drank a little and smoked, and I felt she just really wanted to hook up with one of those guys this night. And keep in mind, she's only like 16 at the time too. But we just ended up saying, fuck it, let's try to make the best of it. There were more drugs to do, and it was only around 2 a.m. at this point. I was open to the idea of doing more cocaine, but Evan also had a couple bars left on him, and he offered me one. Now, I hadn't done Xanax at this point, and really wasn't about to, because I didn't really feel ready for the experience yet. But part of me said, fuck it, let's go a little crazy, but not too crazy, and I was talking to Evan about it, and he said, just take a half a bar then, which he proceeded to give me a half a green Xanax bar, and I took it when we were on our way back. So technically this is my first time taking Xanax too, but I don't really consider it because I don't remember feeling shit from it, and the first time I took Xanax alone is a classic of a story itself, but that's for another time. We decided to stop at McDonald's too on our way back, and I have no fucking clue what we got. I think I probably just ate some fries, to be honest. But on the way back, Isabel's becoming more and more slurred, and it seems like she's just gonna pass out. I noticed a similar vibe with Evan, and I don't think he drank any, but honestly he may have had a sip or two. And right before we got back was around the time the peak of the coke high was fading, and for the most part, I was fairly satisfied from it. I remember I didn't like the runny nose, but I could easily see how it was fitting for parties or just trying to get hyped up in general. But when we get in the hotel, all of the squares are gone, and so is the bottle Michael and I bought. We don't really say shit about it, as everyone right away is talking about how they want more Xanax and cocaine. Now, if these guys were going to supply us with more drugs, hey, who gives a fuck really if they want to go through most of the squares and liquor? At least they're making up for it by matching some blowing bars, right? But to get to those substances, they had to meet back with their plug in their hometown, which from us happens to be a little over a half hour. Now, a half hour isn't the worst thing, but it is when it's in the middle of the night and you're in the middle of getting fucked up and there's only so many hours left until sunrise. So that shit can seem like a forever long journey, because at the very least it's gonna be an hour, and realistically it was probably gonna be an hour and a half, unless they were booking it. But everyone was still down because we really didn't have any other choice, so Angelica says, I can drive, I haven't been doing too much like everyone else. Which was true, even her younger sister Maria had been drinking and smoking way more than her from what I saw. But everyone goes on talking, and it comes down to Angelica driving with Dylan, Miguel, Evan, and Isabel. The plan seemed simple and solid. Dylan said they would be back an hour to an hour and a half with a lot of coke. Now before leaving, Evan puts the weed he just picked up down on a small table and says feel free to smoke some of it. Now he would actually forget about telling us this and thought someone stole his weed later on. But the aforementioned group leaves and Marco rolls a blunt so we can smoke. And around this time is when Marco and Grace started getting touchy-feely with each other. There were 2 beds and Grace was pretty much laid up on them. And at this time, our group consisted of Michael, Grace, Marco, Maria, and me. And for the most part, we were pretty high, especially considering we had a blunt going around now. But we smoked, and I remember Michael and I took some snaps, turning up at this point, so it wasn't necessarily a bad time or anything. The thing was, as the night went on, Marco and Grace progressively just got more intimate. Maria, on the other hand, was trying to do the same with either me or Michael. Now, we're obviously just way too old for this girl. I mean, this girl was barely in high school, and I was out, Michael soon to be on his way out. But she's still complimenting us, trying to dance up on us and shit. And, Michael's not down, I'm not down, and we just kind of be mutual about it until she gets the idea. But around this point, not too much happens. We eventually start to chill out more. Eventually, Grace turns on the TV and the lights get shut off. Grace and Marco kind of just go at it in spurts, of kissing I mean, and an hour goes by pretty quickly and I try to call Evan, with no response. And Marco gets pretty pissed when another 30 minutes go by and we don't hear shit from them. And I think we smoke another blunt around this point. But another half hour or so goes by, and Michael says he has to dip, so he calls up an Uber, and he leaves around 5, I think. I have no idea what was going on. Part of me was just hoping they didn't get caught up in some shit, but another part of me told me that some bullshit was going down. And in fact there was. So we went to sleep, and they didn't show up until like 6 in the morning. And guess what? When they showed up, they didn't have any coke. Just a few bars. Like only fucking 6 of them too. So apparently this is what happened. Evan would come to tell me that they did link up with the coke plug, and Dylan and Miguel went on and decided to do some coke when they were picking up. Now, it would have been totally cool if, they just did a line or two, whatever, but Evan told me they were just going at it for the few hours they were gone. Thing was, they didn't offer Evan shit the whole time, not even a single bump. Isabel was passed out in the car the whole time, so basically they just came back with bullshit and just did a bunch of coke themselves. No one really wanted a Xanax at this point either, and to say the least, when they got back, Marco was pissed. He started cussing Dylan out because there was no coke, in which Dylan responded by trying to tell him there was at least Xanax. Marco was saying he needed an upper and wanted to snort something, so he crushed down the 2 Xanax in response and proceeded to snort them. He didn't feel shit to say the least and remained to be pissed. But even more pissed than Marco was Evan. I think around this point he sort of woke up from his barred out state and realized just how messed up the situation was. Evan comes in saying and wondering who the fuck drank the bottle he brought, along with the full pack of cigarettes and most of his weed. So there was some arguing, mainly between Marco, Dylan, Evan, and Maria. They tried to justify it by saying the coke made up for any expenses he lost, and that it wasn't even that big of a deal. But I mean, talking with Evan after this, he pretty much told me he felt like he lost $200 this night, or that it was just blown on a bullshit ass night. And during all this, fucking Isabel walks in and she just straight up collapses into one of the beds. I knew she was just way too barred out to do anything. But Evan's just pissed and he grabs the rest of the weed and he has Dylan roll it up. But honestly, there was barely enough for a blunt at this point, and the last blunt we had happened to be a broken one. But still, he has him try and roll it up, and it comes out like garbage to say the least. But this dude Evan hits the shit only one time before passing it to me. I hit what I could get out of it a few times, which I'm pretty sure it was burning stupid, and I pretty much thought, fuck this shit, man. I'm not really trying to stay and smoke with these people, so I pass it to Miguel, and Evan asks me if I need a ride back. Of course I say yes, and we gather what shit we had left, and me and him just left. Once we started walking off, Evan started letting out how pissed he really was, not only at the group that was on bullshit, but also because of Isabel and his sister Grace. That's why he didn't care about bringing them with at the time. But we get in his whip, and he's just mad as fuck, just saying all sorts of shit, and he would ask me about what had happened. Now this dude was wild driving me back to the crib. I remember pulling out of the motel, and he sped out of the parking lot and pulled right in front of this truck on the street. Thankfully the truck stopped, or we would have been hit. But he stops at the lights and shit, but once we get on a smaller road, dude just starts blowing through stop signs. I'm just kind of holding on as he's letting out the frustration and telling him to chill out and shit. But it happens regardless, and thankfully we don't crash or get pulled over. Granted, it was only 6 in the morning, but shit can happen at any time, to be honest. But we get to my crib, and he tells me that he'll hit me up later. So we say peace, and at this point I just go inside, go over what happened with a few people, and pretty much just knock out within 30 minutes or so. Evan would hit me up later for a fat smoke session that night, and we went over everything that happened and everything leading up to that. Apparently after he dropped me off, he decided to go back mainly for his sister, which his sister was up and watched over Isabel. The group had left, I guess, not long after Evan and I had left, so they weren't even there when Evan got back. Probably for the better. But Evan picks up Grace, and Isabel wouldn't wake up, so he decided to just leave her at the hotel, which I think she woke up crying and shit later, thinking she got raped again, but no way it happened this time. And I guess that's pretty much all that went down this night. I did get a new experience in of cocaine, and it was fair considering how the rest of the night went. Now, there was definitely more drama this night than there needed to be, but in all honesty, we didn't need those people Isabel invited this night. They pretty much came in, hogged our drugs, and gave little shit in return. And I mean, they didn't give us those Xanax we had at the start. Plus, I mean, it couldn't have been more than a 0.2 between Evan and I when we got the cocaine. And there was past beef and suspicion of them already, on top of their personalities, just having this ego inflation and whatnot. It just wasn't the right crowd for us. And as for Isabel and Grace, I mean, they'll be in future stories, so you'll get to hear about more things about them and what happens with them, because they too were there for a good part of this Chapter 1 series. The two of them would recover fine from this night. Evan eventually cooled down, especially when we got really baked the following night. And what we really took from this is, if our friends are going to be barred out, they pretty much need to be babysat. And I guess, not to be so impulsive with the type of people we decide to hang around. But I'm going to leave it there. I hope you guys did enjoy this story of me doing, first time doing cocaine. If you liked it, let me know in the comments below, and we can get more of these in. If you guys did like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, follow the socials. It's been someone that's no one, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.